What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Layne and I'm a nurse and nurse practitioner student. And in this video, I'm going to be answering a question that I get quite often from a lot of nurses who are either about to graduate nursing school or a lot of new grad nurses. And it's the question of if you should start out in Medsurg as a nurse and if you should get a couple of years of experience there before you specialize. And I'm going to be giving you my opinion about that and some things that you should consider when you're trying to figure out what your first unit as a new grad nurse should be. So a big thing with this that I always tell new grads or like nursing students who are about to graduate is, do you know what your career goals are? Like, how well do you know those? Do you already have a specialty that you have fallen in love with and you are passionate about, and you know that that is what you want to do for the rest of your life, is that specialty? Or even not the rest of your life, but you know that's what you really want to do. Now, some people come, like they graduate and they already know like, hey, I got into nursing because I want to do L&D. I want to be an L&D nurse, but do I still need to do the Medsurg experience? And to those people, I honestly say I don't think that you need to do Medsurg. I think that, especially with L&D, because it's so competitive and it's so specialized, I think that it might even be easier to get into L&D as a new grad, like in a new grad residency program, and to just go down that route. Or even if you're thinking that you want to be in women's health down the line, I think that you should probably just go ahead and do that. Another thing to consider with that career goals thing is, do you want to go back to school at any point to get a master's, any kind of certification? Do you want to be in a nurse practitioner program? Especially if you're thinking like, hey, maybe in 5 to 10 years or less than that, if that's what you want to be a women's health nurse practitioner. It makes a lot of sense that you would want to just go ahead and start out in L&D. Like, don't waste your time in Medsurg. So I think it really depends a lot on what your career goals are. Now, for those who maybe have no idea what their career goals are and they're still figuring out what in the heck they might want to do, I would ask you, what kind of experiences have you had in nursing school? Where was your practicum? Where have you worked as maybe a CNA or a tech? Have any of those experiences informed maybe something that you might be interested in? Now, if it hasn't, that's totally okay. Something I ask new grads and nursing students is, have you considered like intermediate care? Because I know some people are like, I just don't want to do Medsurg. Maybe I want to do ICU later on, but I don't really know. I'm intimidated. If you're feeling intimidated by the ICU, which is totally understandable because it is a big learning curve for a new grad, maybe you could consider starting out in an intermediate care or a progressive care unit, because a lot of those you might have to step up patients to the ICU. So you are dealing with very acute patients. Your ratios are a little bit better, but you're still kind of doing a lot of the same things that a Medsurg nurse might do. And with those skills as an IMC nurse, you can always get a Medsurg job later if you end up loving Medsurg and you think that that's for you. So just keep that in mind. I will speak personally, like I did start out as an intermediate care nurse for about 2 years, and the unit I was on was pretty rough, but I will say that I got a solid foundation as a nurse and an IMC, which allowed me to stand my ground later on as a nurse. And honestly, if you're thinking about travel nursing, but you don't necessarily want to do ICU as a new grad nurse, I think IMC could also be a great experience, because then when you apply for travel nurse positions, you can apply for both IMC and Medsurg. Versus if you start out in Medsurg, you technically would not be trained as an IMC nurse. Now, for those people out there who know that they want to do Medsurg nursing, because I think Medsurg nurses are some of the most amazing nurses. If you know that you want to do Medsurg, do Medsurg. There's nothing wrong with doing Medsurg. Like, there's nothing wrong with starting out in Medsurg as a new grad. Like, I think that you're going to learn great fundamental skills for nursing, especially if you're able to get into like a nurse residency program. And I don't think that by starting out in Medsurg you would be wrong. So also, don't believe the hype that you have to specialize. You don't. You really don't. You have plenty of time to figure out what you want to do. So if you're not sure what specialty you want to do, don't feel like you have to choose one. It's okay to start out in Medsurg or IMC. Now, I'll speak a little bit about ICU, which I know like a lot of new grads also want to start out in ICU, and I think that that also works. Now, I am not an ICU nurse. I do not have that background, but I'll just speak from new grads, actually not new grads, but like nursing students who were like techs on the floor I was working at. And then they ended up starting out in the ICU and they did fine. So I will say with ICU nursing, like make sure that you know, had a solid nursing school education. You feel pretty solid with your fundamentals. And you do need a lot of grit because you are going to be learning a lot. But that being said, that's the same thing for a lot of different specialties. So I think you can also do ICU nursing from the jump if that's what you want to do too. I think something else to keep in mind that some new grads don't always think about is what do you think that you can manage with in terms of your stress levels as a new grad? The first couple years as a nurse can be pretty rough. Just because there's so much of a learning curve, you're learning so much, and especially if you start out in the inpatient world, there's just a lot going on, so it's very stressful. You have to be able to be honest with yourself and figure out if you're able to handle the stress of the particular specialty that you're going to. Some units are inherently more stressful, like ICU, like emergency department. You're just going to need a lot of grit to be able to hit the ground running and do those, which again can totally be done, but just mentally prepare yourself that there's going to be a lot of fast-paced environment. If you're someone who's like, no, I don't do well with stress, like, and I totally get that, fam. Like if you feel like I don't, maybe one day, but not right now, do I really want to do that? It's okay. Like maybe do a year or two of Medsurg and then the ED, the ICU, it will be there, fam. It will be there. Like you can do that. You can do that in a couple years. So just keep that in mind. And I think the other thing I'll say lastly is knowing, I know a lot of like nursing students and new grads say that they want to do ICU. Just keep in mind how you deal with death and mortality. And you're going to deal with that as a nurse wherever you are, but depending on the ICU that you're in, you might deal with that a lot more. And I would say you do need to be emotionally in a secure place to be able to deal with that. People that you, and I think, let me just say something, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, like I got all A's in nursing school and like I'm really smart, so that means I have to be in the ICU. And if I'm not in the ICU, then like, what does that say about me? And I think that's really toxic because there are really intelligent nurses in every specialty. You don't have to be an ICU nurse to get like that clout of like, oh, I'm an ICU nurse. Like don't succumb to the pressure of that if that's really not for you, because I know a lot of extremely intelligent nurses who did not choose to go the ICU route because they knew that it was really going to affect them emotionally, seeing people dying, people who are hooked up to all these tubes and stuff. It was just going to be too much on their psyche, and that's okay. So just don't feel pressured, and ultimately you have to make the right decision for you. And I think that can really vary depending on what type of person you are, what your goals are, and all the things that I've said in this video. But I just want to let you guys know that no, you do not have to do Medsurg if you don't want to. You don't have to do any kind of specialty. It's just figuring out what's going to be best for you. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you a little bit of insight. It's just my 2 cents to help you as you are trying to figure out where you should start out as a nurse. But I wish all of my new grad nurses all the best. I'm sending you extra love, guys. Extra love. I have a special place in my heart for all of you new grads. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. All right. All right, guys, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment below if you are a veteran nurse, where did you start out as a nurse? And if you are a new grad nurse, I want to know where you are applying, where you're thinking of. I want to hear all about what your passions are. So make sure you comment below and to subscribe to my channel, because I will be coming out with plenty of more content very, very soon. All right, guys, take care. Peace.